All right, so we have already learned how to add and subtract integers. We've already learned what the word integer means. Today, we're going to be learning how to multiply and divide integers. So just as a reminder, I've written down our cleanup signs. These are the same ones we use for adding and subtracting. Just remember that for adding and subtracting, you use these signs when the signs are next to each other. However, for multiplying and dividing, you use these rules even if they are far apart. So if you have a positive number multiplied by a negative number, the final answer is going to follow this table. And as I do examples, I'll point them out. Another thing I wanted to make note of is, what does multiplication look like? So I know you guys are all used to seeing a little X for multiplication. That's what we all grew up seeing. However, there are two other ways that you can show something is multiplied together. Thank you. One is a little dot. So if you see a dot, that dot represents multiplication. Or sometimes you may not see anything at all. You may just see two brackets. And those two brackets means those two numbers are multiplied together. So I'm going to show you all of them. Again, just a reminder, we're not going to use calculators. We're going to use our brains and our massive multiplication table. So as long as you have that table, which you're allowed to use on quizzes and tests, you should be fine. All right, so let's go ahead and start with question number 1. We're going to start off pretty straightforward. It says -2 times +3. So here's how I solve a question like this. What I do is I first multiply the numbers together. So what is 2 times 3? It's just a 6. And now, in order for me to figure out what sign is going to go in front of it, I am going to look at my chart. If I have a negative and a positive, now, like I said before, that negative and positive are not illegal. You're allowed to have numbers like that. However, when you're multiplying and dividing, you use the exact same rules as when you were adding and subtracting. So when you have a negative and a positive, you're going to follow this rule over here, and your final answer is going to be just a negative sign, which means our answer is going to be -6. And I recognize you guys can't see this color, so I will stop using it. Did that make sense? Okay, let's go on to question B. We have -9 times -6. Let's multiply the numbers first and use your chart if you need to. What's 9 times 6? Good, 54. What is a negative times a negative? Good. And if you didn't know that, what you're going to do is you're going to use the same chart as before, this time not to clean anything up, but to get our final answer, a negative and a negative, we will change to just a single positive. Do we need to write down a positive sign? You don't have to. If you did, it would be fine. You wouldn't lose any marks or anything like that. And if you didn't, that's okay as well. All right, now we're going to get a little bit more challenging, where we have 3 numbers multiplied together. This changes nothing. What we can do is we can do 2 of them at a time, or if you're feeling risky, you can kind of do all of them. If you're feeling adventurous, I mean, you could just do all of them. I'm going to take it slow. I'm going to do 2 at a time. So let's start with the first 2. What is 2 times 6? 12. And what's a negative times a negative? Good. So -2 times -6 is actually a +12. So I just took the first 2 numbers, I multiplied them together to get +12. However, that third number, I haven't done anything to, so I'm going to keep that as is, -1. And now in my next step, I'm ready to multiply those. 12 times 1 is 12. Good. A positive times a negative is negative. So our final answer is going to be -12. And again, if you could have done that all in one step, you can do that. Bothering me that this box is not perfect. There we go. All right, let's keep going. Now for question D, E, and F, we have to be careful because we actually have a mixture of questions. And I'll explain what I mean. If you take a look at this question, you have these 2 numbers multiplied together, and then you have a subtraction sign, and then you have a -3. So that's actually subtracted. So it's kind of like saying -2 times +8 subtract -3. We haven't gone over BEDMAS yet, but hopefully you guys remember it from grade 8. Whenever you have a question like this, you have to multiply the numbers before you can subtract them. So I'm going to do this in order. First, I'm going to multiply these two numbers together. -2 times +8. You could just say it out loud. What do you think? -2 times +8. -16. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep it in brackets. Whoa. And I have mine. I don't know what is happening here. Let me try that again. -3. It's lagging. That's what's happening. It's coming. All I did was I multiplied the first two numbers, -2 times +8, but I didn't multiply it by the -3 because it's not multiplication, it's subtraction. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at these two negatives and we're going to clean them up. Luckily, the signs of cleanup are the same for when you're adding and subtracting or multiplying and dividing. What do two negatives give us? Good. So we're going to have -16 plus 3, different signs. So we're going to subtract the numbers together. Sorry, we're going to subtract the numbers and take the sign of the bigger number. What's 16 take away 3? And then the sign of the bigger number is? Good. So it's going to be -13. Was that a little bit confusing, or are you guys okay with it? It's okay? We're going to do a couple more examples of this, so hopefully it will make sense. So if question D was a little tricky, we're going to do another one, this time with question F. It's very similar, so let me just highlight the parts that we need to know. We have a +9, subtract, and then we have these two numbers multiplied together. So according to BEDMAS, I want to do the multiplication before I add or subtract anything. So I'm actually not going to touch the +9. I'm going to keep the +9 exactly where it is. And I'm also going to keep that negative sign exactly where it is. So I haven't changed anything in the first part of the question. I'm only going to multiply the things that I've highlighted. And when I do that, I'm going to keep them in brackets. So what is -6 times -7? +42. Good. Okay. Now, again, we have these illegal signs. So what we need to do is we need to clean them up. What is a negative times a positive going to give us? Negative. So it's going to be 9 minus 42. And different signs. So we're going to go ahead and subtract the numbers and take the sign of the bigger number. What is 42 take away 9? 33, and the sign of the bigger number is? -33. Good job, you guys. Frustrating. All right, on to the next one. For this question, again, let me get my highlighter and so we can highlight the more important parts. Okay, so here we have -2 times -5 plus all of these numbers multiplied together. So what I want to do is I want to deal with all my multiplications before I start adding the two separate parts together. Okay, so when I do that, what is -2 times -5? Good, +10. I want to hear from more people, so go ahead, and I'm not asking you to raise your hand, you can just say it out loud, but a few more. Let's do all of these together. So let's not deal with the signs first, let's just look at the numbers. What is 3 times 2 times 1? Just a 6. What is negative times negative times negative? Good guess. So let's look at it. A negative times a negative would be a positive, and then a positive times a negative will give you an overall sign of a negative. So these numbers here are going to simplify to give us -6. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and clean up these signs as well. And what does a positive and a negative give us? -6. 10 minus 6 is? Just a 4, yep. And so that would be our final answer. All right, question number 2. Before we go on to dividing integers, which is just the next page, and then we're done. We're done our lesson. Let's look at question number 2, which is fill in the blank with the missing integer. I like questions like this. It's kind of sometimes working backwards. It really gets you to think. So what I'm actually going to get you to do is I want you to work in your groups of 4. So the people in the front, just turn around to the people behind you, get into a little group of 4. You don't have to move desks or anything, and just work together on these 6 questions. I'll give you 3 minutes and we'll come and take them. We'll get back together and take them up. So this time, I want you to raise your hand if you're volunteering an answer, and I want as many different people as possible so you can practice your names. So let's start with Jelnar. What did you get for the first one? 8. -8 is correct. That's the only number that you can fit there. 3 times 8 is 24. Positive times negative is negative. Let's go to question B. Abisha? Question B? Good job. -7, because 6 times 7 is 42. Negative times negative is positive. Tayshawn? What was that again? Positive 3. Good job. Yeah. How about question D? We know 5 times 3 is 15, and you can take a look at your multiplication table and ask yourself 15 times what is going to give you 45? Nayara? 3, and is it going to be a positive or a negative? Yeah, it has to be a positive. Again, the same thing for question E. We know 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times what is going to give us 56? Priyanka? Positive 7 is correct. And the last one, I really like this one. You have a whole bunch of numbers, but the answer is 0. So what must be in the blank for us to result in a 0? Emily? It has to be a 0. Good job. All right, let's finish off this lesson with 4 examples of division. Now, I know when you look at question number 3, you're probably thinking, oh, those are not division questions, they're actually fractions. However, every fraction question is a division question. And sometimes it just so happens that the top number and the bottom number divide so nicely to give you a nice whole number. We're actually going to be starting fractions tomorrow. So this is actually not fractions at all. It's division. So Sharia, just pay attention to these last couple of questions and you guys can do your thing. So just like before, what I'm going to do is I am going to divide the numbers and then I'm going to use my cleanup signs to figure out the actual sign. Well, let's look at the first one. What is 35? You can all just answer. You don't have to raise your hand. What is 35 divided by 5? 7. And now we have a negative, and technically this is a positive. So look at your cleanup signs. When you have a negative and a positive together, what does it clean up to give you? A negative. So this number is going to be a -7. And whenever I'm doing multiplication and division and I'm solving stuff, I always tend to keep it in brackets. Then we have a plus sign. 27 divided by 3 is a number, and it is. I think, Sharia, you said it. What was it? 9, good. And technically, we have a positive 27 divided by a -3. So what's a plus and a negative give us? Negative. So this is going to give me -9. So just make note of this positive doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. I divide these numbers and I wrote it in the bracket. I divide these numbers and I wrote it in the bracket here. And what does this question look like now? Just a regular old adding and subtracting question, right? So if I were to highlight just some important parts, I would show you that we just need to clean up these signs and then we're basically done solving the question. So what is a positive and a negative in addition give us? It's still a negative, so it's going to be -7 minus 9. And then we have the same signs. We're going to add the numbers and keep the signs. So our final answer will be -16. Because 7 plus 9 is 16, and the sign in front of both of them is negative. And so that means our final answer is going to be -16. What do you guys think of that example? Okay? Is it familiar to you? Yeah? I see a couple of thumbs up, so that's awesome. Let's just keep going. On to the next one. Okay, what is 12 divided by 3? 4. And what's a negative divided by a negative? Good. So that first set of division is going to give me positive 4. I'm going to keep the subtraction sign where it is. And then the next one's pretty straightforward. They're both positives. What's 16 divided by 4? Just a 4. Now, if we cleaned up the signs, we would basically get 4 take away 4, which would give me a numero 0. Do you guys see why it cleaned up to give me a 0? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I really hate when the recording catches me struggle doing something. There we go. It's because technically this is a positive 4. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and then 4 take away 4 is just going to give us a 0. 2 more questions. This time I want to volunteer. So does anyone want to try question C with me? And you can make as many mistakes as you want. It's totally fine. No one is here to judge or anything. In fact, I want you to volunteer and make mistakes so we can all learn. Peyton, go ahead. What's 14 divided by negative 2? Negative 7. Excellent. And I'm going to keep that negative sign there. What's negative 48 divided by 8? Excellent. Now we need to clean up those two signs. So a negative and a negative make. Yep. So it's going to be negative 7 plus 6. And then we have different signs. So subtract the numbers and take the sign of the bigger number. Very good. The final answer is going to be negative 1. A volunteer to do question D? Sharia, go ahead. What's negative 63 divided by negative 7? Positive 9, yep. Minus. What is negative 24 divided by negative 8? Very good, positive 3. And now we have a double illegal sign. What's a negative and a positive give us? So it's going to be positive 9 minus 3. And here we have different signs. We're going to subtract the numbers and take the sign of the bigger number. It's just going to be a positive 6, exactly. All right, that's it for division. So what I'm going to get you guys to do now, because you have quite a bit of time in class, is, first, everyone's going to read my hilarious comic and laugh, because math comics are so hard to find. And see how it's related? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I just want to point your attention to the bottom left-hand side of the sheet. I always write down your homework there. So see at the bottom, it says complete handout B2. Then if you go to your next staple page, you're going to find handout B2. And again, just like before, for those questions, if you feel like they're too much, you can pick and choose. You can do every other one. However, because you have about almost half an hour in class, I do think you should try all of them. I don't think it's too much. But I never collect homework, so it's really up to your discretion. All of the answers are at the bottom, over at the bottom of the page. And then just like today, in tomorrow's class, we'll begin our class by taking up these questions.